Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is a part of our WISE series. WISE stands for Women of Influence in Sport and Education. This broadcast is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production, and I'm your producer, Garnett L. Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Candace Martin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 3, episode 7 of Invisible Women in Sport. And I'm your host, Candace Martin. Today, you are all in for a treat where I will have a conversation with Jeannette Torres, Associate Manager for Global Partnerships at the National Basketball Association, which we all know as the NBA. And she is also a proud UCF DeVos alum. Jeannette, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sorry about that. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So now I told you we would either do rapid fire or 2 truths and a lie. So I decided 2 truths and a lie. Okay. So I'll go first and then I'll let you go, okay? All right, friends. So I will read off my statements and then everyone will pretty much put which do they think is the lie in the chat. So the first one is I cannot drive a manual car. I am allergic to peanuts. And I do not like white chocolate. So you guys put in the chat, which do you think is the lie? Allergic to peanuts is in there. Peanuts, manual car.
Am I allowed to participate in this?
Yes. Let's see, we get manual car, nice mixture. We get peanuts. All right. So the lie is that I am allergic to peanuts. I am not allergic to peanuts. And one of my teammates are here and she knows me all too well. So she kind of cheated a little bit, but it's all good. So yes, not allergic to peanuts. I cannot drive a manual car. I wish I could because pretty much everyone in my family can. And I do not like white chocolate. Okay, so that was mine. So Jeanette, I'm gonna throw it over to you so you can run through your statements.
Okay. I've been to 22 different countries. I have 14 nieces and nephews. And I have rewatched Game of Thrones 5 different times. Okay. The lie is that I've been to 22 different countries.
Oh.
I have seen Game of Thrones way too many times, but.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so the nieces and nephews, how many siblings do you have?
I have 4 brothers and 1 sister.
Oh, very nice.
Big family, lots of little.
I have 3 older brothers, so I'm the baby and the only girl.
Yeah, I have 4 older brothers, so I get that.
Very nice, very nice. All right, sounds good. So we're gonna jump right in, Jeanette. So pretty much just first off, just tell us about your start in sports. What did it look like for you?
Yeah, so I didn't really realize that I wanted to go in sports until I was a senior in undergrad. And I feel like by that time, one, I didn't really know what a career in sports even looked like. I just knew that it was somewhat a possibility. And I feel like also at that point, it was almost too late for me to like figure out a career change or a change in my major or something like that. So I kind of just went on figuring out what I wanted to do. I moved to New York with my family up here. But that desire to work in sports and do something in that area was still there, but I just still didn't know how to get into it. So I Googled management programs, sports, like literally any combination of words. And I saw the UCF DeVos program and I was like, that's perfect. I'm from Orlando. I was living there. I was like, I could just move back, live with my mom, figure it out. And that's literally what I did. A month later, I moved down to Florida, like head in the book, study for the GMAT. And I eventually got accepted into the program. Once I got accepted, backtrack, I ended up getting a full-time job at the Orlando Magic in ticket sales. And then once I had that job, like weeks later, I got the acceptance into the grad program. So I really had to make a decision on whether I quit my full-time job, go back to school, even though that job was already in sports, or, you know, do I take the risk by quitting that full-time job and go back to school, kind of start from square one. I knew nothing about sports. So the choice was very easy for me. I decided to quit my job and go to grad school. I think it was just, I had set a goal to go to grad school, get into sports, and I couldn't pass up that opportunity once it was actually in front of me. So that's kind of how it started. And then once I got accepted and started grad school, I got a graduate assistantship with the athletics department, which really was an amazing experience for me. I feel like I wore many hats. Like I was working in the donor relations department, but I mean, we worked all game days. We worked with corporate partnerships. We worked with ticket sales. Like there was one point where we were helping like renew season tickets and like literally everything that you could think of that happens in an athletic department. I somehow was involved. Just, you know, I feel like that's how some athletics departments are. And also like I'm a graduate assistant. They're going to like pull me in for everything. And it was really fun. I feel like I got to experience a lot. And I feel like that and the DeVos program really helped me figure out what exactly I wanted to do in sports. Cause I mean, again, like I touched a lot of things, and then through DeVos, like we had so many speakers, like what they did and just like learning about all that. And I realized that corporate partnerships was kind of the route that I wanted to go in, even though I still had no experience. So I stayed at UCF after grad school. They offered me a full-time job, which was great. I loved working there. Big UCF fan, proud alumna, and bought season tickets for the football team. Like it's just everything I wanted, but I knew that corporate partnerships was still calling my name. I still wanted like that different experience and to learn something new. So fortunately, a job opened up at Golf Channel. And through connections, Professor Buckstein at the grad program and undergrad program, he helped me out too, and really helped open my eyes to what different opportunities were out there. So luckily I got the job. Unfortunately, it was a contract role and no one was really leaving in that department, which speaks very highly of the team and the company. So I kind of knew that after the 1-year mark, I'd have to start looking somewhere else. And then again, common theme through connections, there was a job at MLS. I knew someone there that I connected with while I was in grad school. And again, that opened the door for MLS, and then loved my time there, was working across multiple soccer properties and working in corporate partnerships and very hands-on, traveling, going to matches. But I knew that one, I've always wanted to work in basketball in the NBA, and two, I wanted something a little different, which started, you know, I'm looking at jobs, and again, had a connection at the NBA, saw a job, reached out, and that's kind of maybe short story or long story of how I got to where I am right now.
Absolutely. So pretty much a lot of what I heard was building relationships, from the Golf Channel to the NBA to DeVos. Professor Buckstein was all about building those relationships, which ultimately set up your next move.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like networking sometimes has like such a, like, I don't know, people might get like anxious about it or like don't want to do it. And like, I'm totally in that boat, but I found that building quality relationships over like having a huge network and wanting to connect with everyone really set me up in my career to like just continue to build those relationships that I already had and know that they know who I am, they can advocate for me, and then I could also like help them out. Like they had someone who wants a job and I'm working at MLS, like for sure. So it's like building those relationships where it's not just one-sided, but two-sided. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you talked about how your job at the golf network was a contract job when you left UCF. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Why ultimately did you decide to accept the contract job? Because oftentimes, you know, myself and many of my classmates talk about, you know, full-time role. When we finished full-time role. So, you know, you were able to take on a contract role, which ultimately turned out in your favor, which opened up another door. So why ultimately did you accept the contract job?
That's a really good question, because I was definitely concerned when I was interviewing and, you know, eventually had to make the decision to accept, because although it was like similar salary to what I had at UCF, like a little bit more, like it's still with the contract role, like you don't have health insurance, you don't have all the benefits that a full-time employee gets. So that was really hard. But I think in my mind, I was like, I just want to do something in partnership so bad. Like I need the experience. I need it on my resume. It's Golf Channel is under NBC Sports. So it's just like a really big brand that I felt like would be great to tie my name to and just also have good experience. And then I just felt like I had to put in my head that at the end of the year, or like obviously before the year was up, like I really had to like focus on the new job and like building either connections wherever I wanted to, or just like really like hunker down and focus on like what's next. And it ended up working for me. But it definitely, like when I wanted to take days off, like I would have to go without pay, or like, luckily I was still young enough to be on my mom's health insurance. So like stuff worked out, but it definitely it's tricky to make those decisions when a full-time job is obviously better and has more benefits. But I think it helped my career in the long run.
Absolutely. So just it's a little bit of sacrifice, just the security, but then you're also within the age where you can still use your mom to get your mom's insurance, but also it's a great opportunity that you couldn't pass up.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So now I want to talk about a little bit about what you do now. So how would you explain to someone, I have a lot of classmates who are interested in partnerships. How would you explain to someone with no knowledge, kind of what you do, what's a day-to-day like? We know no day is the same, but ideally, what's an average day like for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like no day is the same. I feel like that everyone says that in every job too. But I feel like, I think I was telling someone this, every day kind of is the same, or at least there's a cycle that you get used to. Like, yeah, you might be doing different things every day, but like the goal of each day is to make sure that you're fulfilling what is in your partner's contract or the proposals that you put in front of them, or just activating their brand across the league in my instance. So I think in the simplest terms is the sales team that we have goes out with a deal to XYZ brand, and there's probably months of back and forth of negotiation. They finally agree to a deal with benefits, the budget, like whatever, it's signed. And then once that's done, it comes to our team. And it's really our job to be like, okay, what's in the contract? What's in the deal? What ownership platforms are they doing? Are they going to be doing stuff on national broadcast games? Are they only doing stuff at All-Star? So it's really taking a look at all of it and then being like, okay, now how do we actually fulfill this? Like, how do we give them the audience reach that they're looking for? How do we activate their brand? How do we make sure their brand is showing up in these games, these events, like whatever we're doing? And it could be very particular to maybe they just have their brand on a national broadcast, or it could be anything from on the ground at All-Star, like a huge space that they maybe have like player meet and greets, or maybe it's just a digital campaign. So it could be anything you could think of literally in sports. But when it comes down to it, this is what they have, this is what we sold them, and now we have to make sure that it's actually happening, whether it's a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, like so on and so on. But all that to say, then the day to day is it's not just, but it's doing that. It's making sure that like what we're like, if we're working towards All-Star, like every day is going to be working towards All-Star, going back and forth with clients, making sure that you have like creative material and like you're working towards that goal, like the end goal of whatever event it is. But yeah, every day is going to be different because you have a handful of clients, you have different partners, and they're all doing different things. And then you get used to it. Like, okay, every year, this is when we start working at All-Star. This is when we start working towards finals. So you get into a cycle and you realize like the calendar that your partners are working against. So it's different, but you somehow know what to expect.
Yeah, so a big chunk of it is pretty much building and maintaining some of those relationships that are established.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, other than like obviously fulfilling what they have in their contract and all that stuff. I think building those relationships and maintaining them is the biggest part of this job, because I think without the relationships, then it's going to be really hard to get anything done.
Absolutely. So what do you find to be the most difficult? So on Invisible Women, we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, what do you enjoy most? We can go there. And then what do you find to be the most difficult in your role, your partnerships role?
I think what I enjoy most is I love basketball. Like I do love working here. It's so much fun. And I think we do a lot of cool stuff, like whether it's my team or whatever team it is, like there's always something going on at the league that's actually like fun to work on. And then at the end of the day, like I love basketball. Like it's just nice to like be able to enjoy it. I know like some people are definitely jaded and like you work in sports forever and like you always go through a period of like, I can't do this, right? Like I can't watch any on TV right now. But I love it. Like I love watching playoffs and like feeling like I'm a part of it, or like I did something small that has to do with like what you're seeing on TV. But what's difficult, or maybe what I don't like, it's busy. Like I feel like it's just, it could be a lot sometimes. I'm also still like fairly new, like I'm about to hit my 1 year mark. So there's still a lot of things that like I'm learning and figuring out for the first time, but I just think, you know, from an outsider's perspective, and like even when I started, I'm like, okay, it's start of season, end of season, which is not the case. Like you're always working towards something. So it's like once something's over, then it's like, okay, what's the next thing? And it's like, okay, we have like a day to like decompress, and then it's like back in it, which is rewarding when like, you know, the event, like with all-star finals, whatever it is like actually happening and you finish it. But I think sometimes it could definitely feel like a marathon that's just like going, and like you have like one break and then like you get back in it. So that's something that like is all across the sports industry. Like obviously it's not just basketball, it's not just the NBA, like any league, any team, like it almost just never ends. And I don't know, that's definitely something that's not that enjoyable, but maybe there's a solution down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So who you're rooting for right now?
Good basketball, but if I had to pick a team, oh, this is tough.
This is good basketball. That's a good one.
I really want Luka to win a championship.
Okay.
I don't really see that happening based on last night's game and the team that he's playing, but I think that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my team was knocked out. I was pulling for Memphis. I'm from Memphis originally, so I was pulling for us. But
yeah, I was a big
really wanted that for John, and yeah, they have a good team. It's a young crew, so I was really pulling for them. But it was tough. It was definitely tough. All righty. So so you're talking a little bit how you have to fulfill the contracts that are established with different companies and other organizations. So what activations are you most excited about that you've seen from beginning to end during your nearly 1 year with the NBA?
I have two in mind. I think one is a really big one, which was at All-Star, which obviously is like one of the key events at the NBA. And it was just really fun, a lot of hard work and very stressful at times, but it was really fun starting something from the very beginning, from an idea that we had to putting a proposal in front of a partner to like upsell them on this, for them to agree, and then kind of just like full steam ahead now that we're like on the same page. Like, how are we going to build this out? How are we going to do this? And it was a big global campaign that we did with a partner that launched first through the NBA and All-Star Weekend. So we were kind of like the first thing that consumers and gamers saw. And it was our job really to make sure that they saw this logo, they saw this branding and everything that we did. So we kind of did like a huge digital campaign across broadcast, digital, in arena, all throughout Cleveland, in our apps, like everything. And it was a lot. It was a heavy lift. And I feel like, you know, there's always going to be like hiccups and mistakes and just last minute stuff, which was absolutely the case here. But it was awesome, like being on the ground at All-Star, driving throughout Cleveland and like seeing like these big billboards and signs, and then being in the arena and our clients there, and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks awesome. Like their logos everywhere. So I think that was really fun. And then like once All-Star was over, it was just like a weight off my shoulders to be like, we did this, like it went well. They received a ton of impressions and views and downloads and everything, which over exceeded both of our expectations, which was really fun. So I feel like, and that was also my first All-Star. So in general, it was a lot of fun. And it being the 75th anniversary, like there was just a lot of fun elements to go into it. And then having like seen a project from start to finish for my first All-Star was awesome. And then I think the other one is a fun thing that my team does is we kind of have the ability to like there's a sales team and they do like the big brands, but if there is a brand that we think in terms of consumer products that like they have a product and we think it would be really fun to collaborate and make like a co-branded product, whatever you can think of, like our team is able to explore that and see if it works. So before I joined the team, my boss actually found a couple of companies and kind of started building those relationships. So by the time I started, the deal was done, the contract was signed, and then it was like our turn to kind of figure out what we wanted to do. And both of these brands are minority owned. One is Latinx owned, and then the other is a Black owned business, a couple, and they co-founded it. It's called Bright Black Candles. And it was just so fun working with them. One, they like love the NBA, they love basketball. So like they were absolutely like about the collaboration. And two, like we built this NBA scented candle, which like I feel like you don't really think of an NBA scented candle when you think of it, but it was really fun like seeing this from start to finish. And like they're sending us samples, like what the packaging is going to look like, what's going to be on their website, like literally making a product together with a brand that like we fully support and believe in. And it's not just the candle, like we could do so, like we've done so much more with them. They've done stuff at All Star. We're doing a lot of programming around startup season for next season and like stuff like that. So it's just really fun. Like it's not like what you think about when you think of like corporate partners and the NBA and like big brands that you see. Like there's so much within the NBA and like all these different products that we're able to be creative and build new relationships. So I think that's been fun. And then just like working towards what we're going to do next season, like what different candle are we going to do to support different, and like they're very big on storytelling and using their candle to like tell those stories about social justice causes that they care about, Black lives. And we're able to like, as the NBA, be like, yeah, we totally support this and let's figure out like what we could do there. So I think that's been like the funnest project that I work on. And it's so easy to work with these people because like they're just as passionate as we are. And then it's kind of like we could do it. I don't want to say we could do whatever we want, but like we kind of have free reign to like build this partnership to be what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we didn't talk about that in the pre-screen. I didn't know NBA had a candle. So are we talking like a fresh scent? Is it like a food, like a sweet scent?
A maple wood, so that's a play on like the quartz and stuff, and then like a little bit of hops and orange. It's really good. I could share it with you. So
please do. I'm a stickler for candles. Maya knows I am a stickler for candles. Absolutely. So now I kind of want to talk about, Jeanette, what your experience has been like as a minority woman working for MLS. So on the screen we have the candles here. Yeah, candle. Absolutely.
Highly recommend. I've bought in like 4 of them already and like just go through them because they smell really good. And that is not a shameless plug. I'm just saying. Really
we like all the shameless plugs here. We like it all. So what has your experience been like as a minority woman working for, the Golf Network, MLS, NBA, in such a white male dominated field? What has your experience been like? And also on the other side, what tips would you give up and coming minority women also getting ready to enter this space?
I mean, it hasn't been easy. I don't think anyone will say that. But I just think it's hard to navigate sometimes. I think sometimes it could be really frustrating, especially when you're interviewing or looking for jobs and you're qualified and you have the experience, and sometimes for many reasons you're not the candidate, or like in any industry there's a lot of nepotism. It's just like all these politics that go into it, and privilege, honestly, that you don't have. So it's like it's very frustrating. And I hope it's going to get easier soon. But it's always, I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And sometimes, in my opinion, it is very hard, and not just in sports, honestly, and like any industry, in corporate America in general. Like, I feel like sometimes things can seem very performative, the messaging that companies are putting out there. what they support and like, you know, all these statements that they put out anytime something happens. And then like you're working there or like, you know, people who work there. And it's just like, is that really what you believe? Because I don't like, as a person, as literally a human being, as a woman, as a minority in this industry or in corporate America, like that's not how I feel. So I think it could be very frustrating. And then my advice that I would give to women in this position, I'll start off by, so someone asked me a question one time and they're like, how, as a minority woman, do you advocate for yourself? And I was like, that is a really good question. And I didn't know the answer to it. And then I actually connected with someone else who like, I was asking for advice and I asked her the same thing. Yeah. And she gave me really good advice. And I feel like it like changed my perspective a lot, because I feel like sometimes we think that we have to be the only ones advocating for ourselves, that we have to like really like make a name for ourselves and like just, you know, be more extroverted if we have to, or like put a face on sometimes. And she was like, I find people that advocate for me, like I don't have to do it myself. And she's like, so you need to find people that when you're not, like, you know, they say when you're not in a room, they're going to still bring up your name, or, you know, your work itself. Like, if you know you do a good job, if you're working hard, like your work's going to speak for you, like no matter what. Like and you need to find people that are going to support that. Like if your boss isn't going to do it, like find someone in the organization that knows what you're working on, that sees your work. And it's like, yeah, I know Jeanette, she's great. Like you should absolutely look at her for this project, or you should absolutely promote her, like whatever it is. I just think we shouldn't do it alone. And I feel like it could feel like that a lot of times, specifically, especially when you're just like, look at the work that I've done, like, or I want to get promoted, or I want to get a new job. Like sometimes it's just like, we don't have to do it ourselves. Yeah. And I don't think that we should be the only ones advocating for ourselves. Like you should and if like, I think sometimes that's still hard for me. It's like, okay, who's in my corner? Like, who can I like absolutely go to that they're going to be like, yes, like that's like Jeanette's great. She's like, whatever. And it's like, I still want to build up that network, and it could be personal, it could be professional, but I feel like you need that in whatever industry you're in, especially in corporate America. Like you need people that are absolutely going to fight for you and like bring your name up when you're not there.
Absolutely. So pretty much champions. So identifying those people who, like you said, will speak, you know, in rooms that you may or may not be in, you know, speak up for you, advocate for you, just be in your corner when you need them to. And they may look like us, they may not look like us, but, you know, just identifying those people, because we can use the help. You know, a lot of times I feel that minority women, you know, we like to do it ourselves. We do. We just like to take it on, do it ourselves instead of just asking for help. But I do, like we talked about a little bit earlier, just do hope that we get more comfortable in doing those things, establishing those relationships, and just asking the question. You know, the worst thing people can say is, no, that's okay. It's absolutely okay, because, you know, you may get 2 no's before you get that one yes, and that one yes may absolutely change your life. Sure. All right, Jeanette. So I have another question. So you work a lot in building relationships, a lot of interaction with a lot of different types of people. You're trying to satisfy their wants and their needs and things established within their contract. So how does Jeanette unplug and reset? What do you do in your free time?
I like that question. So one, I will absolutely do nothing. Like after work, sometimes I just like will lay on the couch and be like, okay, like just, I don't want to think about work. I don't like want to think about doing anything, which is really hard sometimes, because after work, you just have to do personal stuff that, you know, chores, laundry, like whatever it is. But like, I feel like I always take like 30 minutes to an hour, maybe like after work is done, to just like almost like reset. Yeah. Have some time literally to myself. My cousin lives around the block from me, which is great. But sometimes he's like, I'm coming over. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, just give me like an hour or two to like decompress. Like even though I'm like in by myself in my apartment, like I'm still talking to people, like clients all the time. So it's like, I've still been like working with people. So I just need like some time to myself. And I'd say other than that, like, I feel like it's kind of like cheesy to say, but like I genuinely like watching basketball. Like I thought that once I started working here, like it happens a lot. Like when I was working at MLS, I was like, I need a break from soccer, but like I like turning on the playoffs when they're on right now. I'm excited for that. And it's nice to like, I almost force myself when I'm watching to like unplug too, because it's very easy to be like, oh, this branding, or like, oh, like what's going on? But I think like I've always just used sports, whether it's watching on TV or like going to a sporting event, as like something that's like fun for me. That's like kind of like me time. And then I do a lot of unplugging in the morning, actually, like before work. Like I am a woman of routine. So I will eat the same thing for breakfast, and I will work out or like do yoga in the morning. And then I always read like 30 minutes before work. And I feel like that helps me like reset and take the focus off of work, because sometimes it's very easy to be like, oh, like what emails are coming in, or like what's going on. And I feel like having that time for yourself is very important for me. I think some people they'll do everything after work, but I think having time before and after is very important for me. And I think everyone should absolutely have boundaries and log off work when they need to log off work and not work later. And I feel like that's very hard in this industry, but I feel like finding a balance, whether it's not every day or maybe just like once or twice a week, to be like, I am logging off at 6 p.m. I'm not going to look at my phone anymore. I will worry about it the next day. I am absolutely all for that, because I think another thing about being a minority and a woman in sports is I feel like sometimes, most of the time, we have to work a lot harder to show that we are just as competent and just as good of an employee as a lot of people. And that is very hard on us. So I think it's very important to put yourself first, log off, know that you did a good job, and worry about it the next day.
Absolutely. That's pretty great. So what time does your morning start with the resetting before and after? What time?
So I log on at 9. So my workday starts at 9, but unfortunately I wake up naturally at like 6:45, 7, which is just, it's I still hate it, but I've just learned to be like, well, now I have 2 hours before I have to log on. So I might as well like do stuff. I'll lay in bed for a little and like, but like, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll make my coffee. I'll do yoga. I'll read, like, I'll do all this stuff. And it actually like helps to wake me up. And then I like just take my mind off whatever else is going on in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just, I played Division I volleyball. One of my teammates is actually on the show right now. And so we would have like practice at 6 a.m. So we have to be in the gym by 5:15, waking up at like 4:30, 4:45. So I'm scarred. I'm scarred, but absolutely. I'm sure like once I, get into a routine, it's just easier just to get more things done in the morning time. So I definitely will probably get back into that routine, but not in a rush at all.
Yeah.
All righty, friends, I'm coming up on my last question. So any question that you guys have for Jeanette, please begin to put those in the chat. And after I ask my final question, I will throw over Q&A to Maya. All right, Jeanette. So we talked about our last question of the day in a pre-screening. So what would you tell younger Jeanette? What did you wish that you knew then that you now know today?
Yeah, I think I would absolutely tell myself I guess I was kind of speaking on it just now, but just to take it easy, like step back, like absolutely work hard, do your best, do what you need to do to get where you want to be, but be easy on yourself. Like it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to go the way you want. Like I wanted to be at the NBA when I was 18. I got there 10 years later. I wanted to be like, when I was 18, I was like, that's where I want to work right now. It didn't work out. But I was hard on myself. I was like, I should be here by now. I should be doing this by now. I should be doing all this. And then I feel like when you're in that mindset, when I was in that mindset, once you get to where you want to be, you're just focusing on the next thing, which is great. I think it's always great to have a goal and like what's next. But when you don't stop and appreciate what you're doing, if you don't take it easy on yourself, then you don't realize that you're where you thought you were, like where you wanted to be. Like I wanted to be at the NBA. I'm there now. I feel like it's taken me a while to be like, I'm here. Like this is what I wanted to do 10 years ago and I'm actually doing it. So being able to just like take a step back and realize where you are is where you dreamt of being, or like where you want it to be, and like the goal you set out for. I think just like taking time to appreciate that is very important, because then if you don't, you never will. Or if you don't take it easy on yourself, it's just going to be very hard to stop and enjoy things. So I just think it's doing that. It's unplugging. It's being kinder to yourself and not getting mad about like small mistakes, and just enjoying where you are in the moment.
Absolutely. So giving grace. We hear that a lot from a lot of our guests. A lot of the things they would tell their younger self, just to be patient and just give yourself grace. I know me and Maya, we're still working on it, trying to figure it out, but it's hard.
I mean, same. Yeah, I'm still working on it.
It's hard, but absolutely, Jeanette, this was great. Thank you so much for having a conversation with me. And now I'm going to throw it over to Maya for Q&A.
All right, so I will start Q&A with one of my questions first. So you talked about the importance of networking in your journey and in your current role. So for us DeVos students that are like getting ready to graduate and wanting to build a meaningful network, what pieces of advice would you give to us to build that, but also to stay connected with the people that we add to our network?
Yeah. First, I just have to say that there are probably going to be sirens coming by. New York City soundtrack. I'm so sorry. But I think when it comes to networking, I mentioned it earlier, like I am absolutely a quality over quantity person. I feel like when I was in grad school, undergrad, whatever it is, like there's always so much pressure to network and go to these networking events or go to a happy hour, like meet people, which is great. I feel like you obviously need to do that, but the pressure to have to talk to everyone there, or like have to come out of there with like X amount of connections or LinkedIn connections or business cards or like whatever, like that's very stressful for me. And I feel like it's stressful for a lot of people, and networking can be seen as such a negative thing. So when I was in grad school, I came to New York for a weekend and asked people in the DeVos program, in the athletics department, like, do you know anyone that I could connect with? And I met two people on that trip. One worked at the NFL, one worked at the NBA. And those relationships, like being able to like sit down with them, ask them questions, and you could tell like that they were also like genuinely interested in like the questions that I had, or just like my experience. I felt like after that, I was like, these are relationships that I absolutely like want to keep and want to continue like developing. And it's hard. Obviously, they both lived in New York. I was in Florida. But I think over time, when you meet these connections, like build those relationships, it's not as difficult as you think to continue them like years later. Sometimes it would just be like, I knew NBA playoffs were coming up. So I'd be like, hey, like, good luck in the playoffs. Like, I saw this new partnership that you're working on. Like, it's like little things like that, where again, like I think I mentioned it earlier, like it's not just one-sided, like both sides can contribute to it. Whether it's helping other people get a job, or just like talking about what's going on in the industry, what's going on in their job. I think building those relationships and keeping them, whether it could be like a handful, like it could be 5, or, you know, if someone does work better, like meeting a lot of connections and maintaining all those, like I think that's great. But I think the focus is less about quantity and having to go to all these networking events. Like obviously do that, but like focus on the relationships that like are actually meaningful, like either someone that you want to be, like you want to be them when like you get to that career position, or they're in an industry that you want to work in, or even they could be like total opposites of what you want to do or like where you want to be. But I feel like if the relationship is there, like you feel like you could trust them, they're giving you good advice, if it's a natural connection, I think absolutely keep those and maintain those, and again, contribute. Like I think that goes a long way. I think sometimes when you're networking, it's like, okay, like I want advice on a job, I want to get a job, but like think about what else you can contribute and how you could just make conversation without having to always ask for something necessarily.
I think now more than ever, I feel like I'm reminded how selectively social I am. So quality over quantity is really big for me.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm finding people that I want to speak to and that I know it can be mutually beneficial, but without doing too much.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm very much an introvert. So I feel like making it smaller, like where it's only like a small group of people. And like, again, like I build those relationships, and then maybe like next year I have a new connection or a few others. Like it doesn't have to be like all at one time that you're building your network. It takes years. And also your network is absolutely where you work, where you go to school, like whatever programs that you're in, like that is your network. Like I feel like sometimes people forget that too.
Right. And our next question from the chat comes from Garnett Overby, who asks, what advice or words of encouragement would you give to someone who wants to work in sports but has never been a student athlete?
That is me. I was never a student athlete. So I think just taking whatever experience that you have and using it to your advantage. When I wanted to first work in sports, like, I mean, I barely had any experience other than going to a very, very small private school where the basketball team played in like a gym. Like it was not big, not a lot of experience. But I took that as something that I could use on my resume, that I could, you know, kind of reword or and not like, absolutely, I'm not saying lying, but like you have skills that you're using that,
Right.
like, you know, I was a ticket taker, working in athletics, doing a scoreboard operations at a basketball game, but like there's ways to use your skills and translate them into the next opportunity or the next job. And I feel like that really helped me get the jobs that I have, and especially make the jump for like athletics, donor relations into corporate partnerships, where like the relationship aspect of working with donors, of working with season ticket holders, like I had that and I absolutely use that and leverage that to get into corporate partnerships, where again, it's very relationship focused. So even though I didn't have the experience, and then working at UCF athletics, like I wasn't a student athlete, like I didn't come from that background, but I worked with student athletes when I was an undergrad. I have certain experience. I think it's just taking a step back and realizing that like you do have the skills that you need. It might not be the exact thing, but there's always a way to like tie what you've done and not take for granted the experience that you already have.
Right. And our last question from the chat comes from Matt Edelson, who says, what's the best piece of advice you've received for dealing with demanding clients?
Oh, that's a question. Because I feel like that is all the time. I think one piece of advice that I've heard, and I've always like, I will give it now, is that it's just, I'll say it because of the job that I'm in, it's just basketball. Like at the end of the day, it is just a sport. It's not life or death. And if someone wants to react that way, I won't, like, I'm not going to let that impact like my day and my job. I think there's always tricky conversations and difficult situations that you're in with clients, but I think putting your sanity first is always good. Like if you need to step away, then step away. Like you absolutely, I think sometimes, especially now that everyone's working from home and you have all the technology at like your hands, like it's very easy for people to think that you need to respond to something right away, or you need to look at your email late. And I just think there's times when you could absolutely wait an hour, or the client could wait an hour, they could wait 2, you need to like I don't know, I never want to answer an email angry, or like if a client's like annoying me, like I never want to go into it with that mindset. So I am all for taking a break, taking a step back, resetting however you want, and then going back to it. Because again, it's just basketball, it's just a sport. We're not working at a hospital saving lives, so it'll get worked out.
Right. Not putting your self-worth on the work that you do. Like
Exactly.
there's something more than your job title. So
yeah, I am very much an advocate of putting yourself first and
right.
making sure that you're okay before you do your job.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. That was my last question. So I'll send it back to Candace to close out the show.
Thanks, Maya. And thank you again, Jeanette. That was awesome. I absolutely thank you for joining us. And everyone, I'm going to begin to close out the show.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, friends, tune in on June 2nd for episode 8 at 2 p.m. where I will sit down with Monique Smith. Please be on the lookout for the registration link. Also, please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed on future programs at Institute SSJ. If you ever miss an episode, we've got you covered on our YouTube. We have all of our episodes posted and up to date. Please use the QR code to support us with a financial gift as we continue to change lives with the power of sports. Thanks to my team. I'm the host once again, Candace Martin. Jeanette, thank you again for joining us. Garnett, Matt, Maya, and Iane. We thank you all for your support of Invisible Women in Sport. We are a nonprofit organization with other programs that impact various social justice issues. We would like to send a special shout out to Global Partnerships of the NBA. And once again, please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed at Institute SSJ. Viewers, we also need your feedback to make Invisible Women in Sport the best it can be. Following this episode, you'll receive a short survey. Please, please, please fill that out as it is very important to us and how we continue to grow. Also, we do receive a lot of inquiries about if we have any connections to internships. Any of our supporters or members have internships available, please send your information to our producer, Garnett Overby at goverby@sportandsocialjustice.org so we can send it out to people reaching out to us. And once again, tune in June 2nd for episode 8 with Monique Smith. Be sure to register. Once again, I'm your host, Candace Martin. See us now.